the title of this thing, we're just going to even label it Perfect Person. Because I feel like a lot of times the people that tell us we need to do things when we're in the middle of the struggle, we feel like have the perfect life, perfect wife, perfect everything. And they're the ones trying to give us advice of how to deal with our struggles. Like, maybe if you've been through it, that's cool. But most of these people, they are ones that love us that are telling us that. But perfect life. Now, when you think perfect life, you think of somebody who isn't struggling with the things that you're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like you were saying a minute ago, you say, well, why can everybody else go have fun and drink and be at a bar, but I can't? And now I'm in rehab or I'm something like that. But I'm not just talking about a perfect life of what you would think when you think of a perfect life. What I want to talk about today is a perfect life for purpose, which is different. You went through the things you went through. You experienced the stuff that you experienced. And we could say, all right, it was just all chaos, or we just went through these things to go through these things. But I believe that there's a purpose. I believe that the best person to help somebody who's in addiction is somebody who's been through addiction.
Mm-hmm.
The best person to help somebody who's struggling with lust is somebody who struggled with lust in their life. The best person to help anybody is somebody who's been through it, right? It's like even when they train you at work, they don't have somebody who doesn't know how to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said that you do HVAC, and you're doing air conditioning, and you're doing heaters. Well, when they're training you how to do that, or you go to school, do they train somebody? Do they have somebody train you who has no experience at all? Do they have somebody train you that has never worked on an air conditioner or a heater? Or do they have somebody train you who's a master at that, who's a teacher at that, who's an instructor through that? And that's what I feel like it's the same with our struggles in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've been through stuff, and a lot of times people say, I don't know my purpose. I've just done this. I'm always just a mess up. Whatever it is, whatever you think or say or do, we all think this thing. We've all been there. And it's like, well, why have you been through that? Why have you done that? What was the purpose of all that? Was the purpose just like nothing at all? Or was it to prepare you for your purpose? And I want everybody, even the people listening to this today, I want to challenge you with that is, what is the purpose of your situation? You said you've been in about 12 rehabs. I know you've done quite a bit of stuff in your life. You've seen a lot of things. You've done a lot of things. But what was the purpose? What was the purpose of all that? Was it just nothing? Or was there a reason behind it to prepare you for what you're about to do? For what the plan is in your life and the purpose in your life for you to go help other people? And maybe you're sitting there and thinking to yourself, well, I've messed up too bad. I've done too much stuff. I have done this. Maybe, but maybe you just got the experience that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you did the things that you did to get you to the point where you understood the person going through it. So when we say perfect people, I'm not saying like a perfect person who's trying to tell you to do something that's never been through it. I'm talking about the perfect person to actually help you get through it. So let's talk about your story some, Brandon, because a lot of people, this is going to be the first time hearing your story. They don't really know the background of what you've been through. And it may be easy for them to even look at you and say, you know what? Brandon could do it, but he has the perfect life. Well, you haven't had the perfect life, but you do have the perfect life for your purpose and to help the people who've been through stuff like you. And is there people who have probably gone through worse? Absolutely. Is there people who've been through less? But let's go through your story and talk about that today, because I really feel like what you have been through is part of your purpose in life. Just like what I've been through is part of my purpose in life. I have a 24-year-old son who was in a mental health hospital. He was addicted to drugs before that, and it's shown me a lot of stuff. Now I'm helping people who are addicted to drugs, and I'm helping people who have been in, struggling with mental health, not just the individuals, but the families. So let's hear about your story, because we're talking about Brandon today, and we want these people to start hearing who Brandon is, but not only who Brandon is, how Brandon is maybe the perfect person to help them through their struggle and their situation.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you, Jacob. I mean, I want to sit here and say that one of the things that I learned early on, going through a bunch of different programs and things like that, is that I kind of really agree with everything that you said. You hit it on the nail. It's like, how can I help this person if I've never been through this exact same situation, right? Like, and somebody sat down and told me, and they said, Brandon, if you can't learn to bring yourself together and relate with that person on the emotion and on the feeling rather than on the circumstance and what they have, you won't ever be able to connect and help people.
That's good.
And I've always felt like there was this thing instilled in me to want to help people and just see smiles on other people's faces, especially in the world that we live in today. There's so much brokenness and sadness and things like that. And I feel like it also can start from an early age, which happened with me in my story. I feel whenever it was about, I can even remember far back as middle school, just always kind of feeling inadequate. Like I never really fit in, right? And so there was always, that kind of led this thing of like hanging out with different groups of people, and through hanging out with different groups, I just still never found myself really like fitting in. And so I was like, well, I mean, in school, I guess it pays off to be the cool kid, right? So then I started hanging out with people that started skipping and doing drugs and things like that. And then I was like, well, I don't want to go to school anymore. So then I dropped out of school, and I remember then I started, diving into trying different things and breaking in. And when I found drugs, I remember that first feeling that it gave me. It was like that first hit or that first drink, I was like, I can finally breathe. Like, I'm okay. I don't care what anybody else thinks. Then this instant pride sets in, and then it's like this false courage. And I'm like, this is what I need.
Brandon could be just Brandon.
Brandon can just be Brandon. Like, I almost felt there was a sense of power in it. And when I felt that sense of power, I was like, I like this. And whenever I would do drugs and alcohol, I would just become a different person. And I found out that I would become very angry. And that anger had just led into a place of just hate. I hated myself. I didn't like anybody around me. I always felt like whatever anybody had to say, it was judgmental rather than trying to help. That you were trying to tell me how to run my life or what I need to do, because at this point, I'm so consumed in myself and getting high and just addicted to this feeling that now I'm not even Brandon anymore, right? I'm Brandon under the influence. There's this false image that's now being created. And now I'm like in this identity, and I've lost myself, and through losing myself, I stray away from what God originally has intended for me. And God gives us free will, right? If you want to go do drugs, go do drugs. If you want to drink, you can go drink. But I always feel like there's consequences that come with things. And dude, I feel that I just really was trying to figure in where to fit in my whole life. And honestly, it seems like it wasn't even until like recently that it just kind of like hit me to where it's like I don't care about what the world says I need to be or what I need to do, or if I go out and the world says I have to drink or be a part of these things. But it just led me to a really bad place, isolation. Of course, I couldn't keep up with my habit. The addiction was a lot bigger than my finances at that point. So due to that, I started, stealing and robbing and pawning everything that I had. And then that went so far that it led to I didn't really have anything else. Nobody wanted me around. Things always went missing. And then I would do things that I didn't remember, and I'd wake up the next morning with just this guilt and shame. And I told loved ones how much I hate them, and I wish they were gone, and just completely chewed everybody's head off. And I found myself just the world, like, just the walls were caving in,
Yeah.
right? Everybody was gone. It was just me, but the one person that still seemed to be there was, like, drugs.
Yeah. The drugs, the addiction, your addiction, the drug dealers, the hookup. Sometimes the people that do it with you, and we go do and say these things that we end up hurting people, but it's mostly out of our circumstances from the addiction, from wanting to get drugs or needing to get drugs and them not helping us, or us saying that they don't understand what we're going through because they're still doing good and now we're addicted to drugs and we can't get off because it's not really the first time you did drugs or the second time, it's the third time, the fourth time. It's none of those. It's once you can't stop.
Yep.
It's once you can't stop and then you start doing things like you're saying, like robbing. Let's talk about that a little bit. What are some of the things that you've done? Let's talk specifically about some of the things that you've done to actually get drugs. From the smaller things, maybe it usually starts with taking your own stuff and selling that or giving it away, to now you're taking other people's stuff, to now it goes bigger and we're doing more things to actually get what we need, which is just more drugs or another high or chasing the same thing. But the truth is, we're never going to get the same high. So we can keep doing drugs, and it's not going to be like the first time or the second time or the fifth time. Now we just keep needing and trying to chase the same thing, which is leaving us empty. So let's talk about some of those things that you've actually done to actually get drugs, because I think that's where a lot of people like yourself are. We've all done that. We've all done that. My son's done that. I've done it myself. It's like I'd almost do anything to get my next fix, but I wouldn't do anything to try to quit or get better or get healthy. I want to put that same energy into it. So what are some of the things that you found what are some of the situations that you found yourself in because of that?
Definitely. I mean, it started off with just like pawning my own stuff, like you said, electronics, game systems, things that I had acquired up until, addiction had really gotten bad. And then it went to, I'd go over to my parents' house and I'd go in the garage and see tools and things like that. Tools was always one thing that I was going for, and I remember my dad would always call and be like, hey, have you seen this? Or, hey, have you seen that? And I'd be like, no, I've never seen it before.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then it started progressing to where it was like, then they started keeping an eye on me and they started watching me, so I was like, okay, now I got to get sneaky with stealing stuff, right? And I got to be more like low-key about it, and then that just became one of those things where it was like I was already caught on, so it just, every time I came over I was never trusted.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, I'll wait till whenever they leave and then I'll break into my own parents' house. Then I've already pawned all the tools. I need this much money for this much dope, but this isn't going to get me that. Well, here's their TV to their bedroom, right?
Wow.
So now I take this TV, unplug it from their dresser, they're not home, take it, put it in the car, go and pawn it, and then they come home, and I just make sure to leave the pawn ticket on the counter for them so that they can have the pawn ticket to go get it back. Because at least if I leave the pawn ticket, right, it's not that messed up. Like, they can still go get their stuff.
Yeah.
That was my mindset back then, that it was like, well, you're lucky that I even left the pawn ticket so you could get it. And then it led to where it was like, okay, well, now I'm going to go and rob other people. And so people who were quote-unquote friends, I would go over and I'd see something and maybe I'd steal some of their stuff and then I'd go and sell it. And then it just got to a point where I remember I was just so far gone and getting high and just not in a good place. And it was one night I was taking a bunch of Xanax, drinking alcohol, and just drinking a lot of liquor, and got the bright idea that, I had a gun on me and there's a gas station and the person I was with was my drug dealer, and I was like, hey, just pull over real quick and let's hit this gas station and get some money, and let's just go have a good night. Let's go out to San Antonio or go to the strip club and just blow money and get high and have fun. So pull up to the gas station and find myself sticking up a clerk. and asking for money and threatening to kill him and all this stuff, all because there's like this burning desire of like, I need to get high. I need to change the way I feel. I don't like the way I feel. But unfortunately, I have already burned through everything I own.
Yeah.
I've gone through everybody else's stuff. I'm at the option now where it's like, I need money and this is the quickest way. So then after that one, then I find myself doing another one, right? Because like I can't get enough. I'm like, oh, this feels good, the adrenaline, right? So next thing you know, I find myself sticking up another one. And then after that, I see an armor truck, find myself trying to stick up the armor truck. And then, you know, it just leads on to trying to figure out, you know, how we can get blueprints to a bank and all this stuff. And and then you just have this false reality of like, I'm going to do this one thing, it's going to change my life, I'm going to move and I'm going to transfer the money and, you know, go live somewhere else. And it's like, I sit back and I think about it now and I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. But in that moment, everything felt, it felt,
made sense.
It made sense. Yeah, it made sense. And so I think that's why I have been strayed off path in life for so long, is because being under the influence of drugs and alcohol, I was so delusional that all these things actually made sense. And so these great, bright ideas that I had were only just damaging me more and more and more and more and bringing me pain. And it's like, you know, you keep digging your grave until you can't dig it no more, right? And so I feel like I was getting to a point where I'm like, I'm so like deep in stuff now because of robbing and because of taking other things just to feed my addiction. It just led to like legal troubles. And like during those legal troubles, you would think like, hey, you know, that's gonna be enough to stop me. But yeah, dude, I mean, even facing 25 years to life, that wasn't enough. I still remember showing up to court high. Yeah. And my lawyer was like, are you kidding me right now?
You want me to help you,
but you can't even show up to court sober, let alone put in eye drops.
Wow.
And, you know, I remember my lawyer, he was like, hey, you know, just wait out here, I'll go in and do that stuff. But it just goes to show that, like, there was this, I feel like the enemy had this hook in me, and I was just, like, held captive to my own, like it almost, I feel like even through times of being incarcerated, I met other inmates who had more freedom being locked up than people who were free and miserable and just had no peace.